Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order at East Bay Charter Township. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And can we do a roll call, please?
Richardson.
Here.
Wassam.
Present.
Ferguson.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Headley.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
And it's noted that Walters is absent and excused.
She's actually stuck in traffic.
She's stuck in traffic. She might be here. Okay.
Fun. That is a blast. We'll catch Mindy when she gets here, but is there any conflict of interest anyone has to declare? Moving on to approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda of the East Bay Planning Commission for Tuesday, August 5th, 2025.
Thank you. You got a motion by Paul, seconded by Steve for approval of the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next up is public comment. Anyone can come on up to the lectern. You've got 3 minutes. If you'd like to, come on up.
Come on up.
Or come on down, I suppose.
No, I think it's north. That's north. Good evening. Judy Nemitz, East Bay Township resident. Like to talk a little bit tonight about temporary dwelling units and some of the enforcement. Without a permitting process, I don't understand how you're going to enforce it. It's rather ludicrous and nonsensical if you don't know start and stop dates, and the residents of people camping next door have no recourse, and you don't have any recourse if there's no permitting process. That seems like you're making a law. Ordinances are law without any enforcement. How do you do that? Seems pretty nonsensical to me to make a law you can't enforce. Again, if houseboats and containers aren't mentioned in an ordinance, they're not approved. So if they're not approved and they're not listed in there, you need to clamp down on them. They're not allowed, period. If it's not mentioned in the ordinance, it's not allowed. You know that. Okay, and then it would be, I think you really have to understand the density of the different zones. Our township is very dense compared to Denver Township, as you all noted. We have 274 people per square mile. They have 56. So campers are not gonna, they're gonna be way more spread out. You need to look at the plat charts for each one of the districts. The Lakes area has all different kind of plats. It should be one camper per deeded property because we have, as a township, ignored the infrastructure of that area, and the density and intensity of that area has done nothing but increase, which our master plan, as you well know, says we're supposed to protect that area. So the infrastructure, I'm talking about the roads, there are 2-track roads, there are terrible roads out there, etc. There's no sewer and water. We know that the density of people is increasing, and by doing this, you're just going to increase the intensity and density on the land. And I think you really need to think about that. Enforcement, we often ask, why didn't you report it? Well, I'll tell you what. People have not felt safe about reporting things. They have been retaliated against in writing, in property damage, and SLAPP lawsuits. Until the state of Michigan stops SLAPP lawsuits, there is no protection. And you can redact the addresses, but you're not redacting names. And all you have to do is a simple Google search and a truth finder for $1.98. It's pretty simple. In addition, people can find out IP addresses if they're sophisticated enough, as some of the folks do well know. So we need to ask ourselves, Why aren't you reporting? Because residents don't feel safe in reporting. We need to set up a task force of Planning Commission, BOT, and people of this community. We need to ask the community if they feel safe in reporting, and set up a task force and come up with some solutions to our current system, because it is neighbor against neighbor, and that's not the community we want to live in. That's not the community I want to live in. So thank you very much for listening tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Judy.
David Endicott, East Bay Township as well, President. And like Judy, I'm concerned about the absence of enforcement language in the draft of the TDU ordinance. Requiring a permit system for the 10-day or 45-day windows for the TDUs is a must, given the challenges of the current complaint-driven system. And those challenges are, just like Judy was talking about, it can be neighbor versus neighbor, anecdotal information versus anecdotal information, as opposed to fact. So there's got to be a way to monitor, track, and enforce these temporary stays. Without a permit, there's not a paper trail that is created. And having a paper trail adds accountability for both the dwelling user and potentially a complainant as well. This also will allow better monitoring in case the user attempts to short-term rent these dwellings. And finally, a permit with tracking creates a fact-driven process. It's something that people cannot debate. Here it is in writing. This is the date when it started. This is the date when it concluded. Again, it just takes the emotion out and gives a firm basis to make a determination in terms of right or wrong. I would be remiss in not reminding the PC that 180-plus riparians have spoken out against some of the changes in the TDU amendment via PFL's petition, and that these amendments fundamentally undermine a lot of the great work that was done by the township and the citizen volunteers to create the new zoning ordinance. And I agree with Judy's point. I really believe a task force would be essential in terms of really looking at, is there a way to enhance, optimize the enforcement mechanism? Again, this goes back to the tremendous amount of work that was done, led by Claire, led by a lot of citizens in terms of rewriting, and to put all that work in and yet have it be kind of on a shaky enforcement foundation, to me is a real issue. So anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you, David.
My name is Dennis Marlett, East Bay Township resident. I would be against any type of permits that would be needed. I think we open ourselves up to a lot of problems with trying to get permits, as well as things happen and people just need to be able to do what they need to do. There was recently a family that I know that had their AC go out during the 4th of July week. They couldn't get anybody there for 14 days to get it fixed. So they moved into their camper, all 5 of them, so that they could have AC and be able to adapt to what they needed to do at that time. There's also, the thing that we did is that as people of northern Michigan, we moved up here. Why? Because we like the waters, we like the lakes, we like everything that we have. Well, that also brings our families with us. And our families want to come and visit, and I know of some families right now that they have people that are staying on their property, been there for 2 weeks. I don't have a problem with it. Nobody doesn't even know that they're there, even though they're on a main road. And to me, that is what northern Michigan is about, is that we want our families to come and have reunions, bring them out to be able to use the lakes, use the hunting facilities, whatever we have. And that's where making an ordinance that prohibits some of that is not fair to everybody. And I'd like to see that it stays open towards, thinking of families getting together. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Good evening. Jeff Geiger, East Bay Township. The finger on the pulse of the people in the township that I've received, hundreds, literally hundreds of people that are represented by the work I've done. They don't want any permits. They want more property rights, less enforcement. They don't think the permit process, I understand the one for longer time for somebody, 6 months, extendable, that seems to go over pretty good, makes common sense. I think there should be a lot of common sense to what we're doing here and allow people to use their property as needed without restrictions from the township. And I don't hear complaints from people about their neighbors, and there's already a ton of ordinances out there that seem to address it, and I appreciate all the hard work that you've all done to at least bring this out so it can be camping allowed, because when you did the ordinance rewrite, we were pushing for it then, and this kind of got pushed down the road, and it's glad to see this coming, because it's been a long summer for people trying to get a spot to camp, from what I've understood, with the state park now being closed. Arbutus was closed with the water issue for a couple weeks, I believe. Yeah, we need to allow people to do that. We work hard for this lifestyle. We're in northern Michigan for a reason. I've been here forever, but a lot of people come here just for that. We need to keep the litigation down. We need to keep the neighbors liking each other. I understand what they're talking about when you've got neighbors pitting against each other. It's kind of a tough thing, but if you're going to accuse somebody, you got the right to face your accuser, so you pretty much got to keep that in there. If somebody's complaining, you want to know who it is. Hopefully it can be worked out neighborly, but yeah, the permit's not a good idea. I think people are really against that. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, going once, going twice,
If I have a comment about the camping ordinance,
or anything in general. It's okay. Thanks. We'll close public comment for this evening. Bring it back to the commission. Claire, we just have one piece of correspondence on our desk. Oh, all right.
We're going to share this.
Yes, that's correct. The remainder of correspondence has all come in via email, and the item on your desk is from Beckett Rader. It's the kind of planning services update, but I just thought there was some interesting updates related to state laws and other kind of statewide programs and opportunities.
Sounds good. Any questions for Claire? If not, we're moving over to Mindy with the Township Board report.
So A, I'm sorry I'm late. I got stuck at that light at 4 Mile for 5 cycles. Anyway, there's been 4 meetings since I was here last, so let me run down those real quick. And we had the June 9th regular meeting, the June 23rd special meeting, the July 14th regular meeting, and the July 29th special meeting. The June 9th meeting, the board passed the wireless communication, the non-motorized access, and the vehicular stream crossing ordinances that we've been talking about. We worked on the Beach Corridor Improvement Authority, Is it me?
I don't know, it keeps going in and out.
When we talked about a residential housing district, as many are aware, there's new state law that allows for TIF financing for housing districts, and we're working with a developer on the former Klaus property, just north of the industrial park off 3 Mile, and they're working towards residential housing development there with TIF financing as well as another program they're working on. So they were there at both the June and the July meeting, and East Bay Township also hired an office manager and a communications specialist. The June 29th special meeting was because our ambulance director resigned, and so we have a new interim director. So that was why that meeting was needed. The July 14th meeting, regular meeting, was a reports meeting. We also went through the audit. I will say that packet was 339 or so pages long, between the audit and that residential housing district, the Crimson Development. But basically, everything looked really good in the audit, and we did pass the first part of the Crimson Development. We also had a special meeting on July 29th. That special meeting was with regards to the new sewer line. We have started the process for having the ability to allow for us to seek grants. So it's a multi-step process, and we have gotten the first process of getting the, I'll call them loans, but they're, loans through the bond market to pay for that. As you might remember, that's about an $11 million project between East Bay and Acme Township. And we have $2 million from the ARPA funds and $1 million we got from the federal government. So, and both East Bay and Acme have $1 million each to go into the project. So it's that remaining that we're going out for bond funds for. And I think you should be up to date. What questions do you have for me? And again, I'm sorry I was late.
All right, any questions for Mindy? Okay, Paul, you're up with the ZBA.
Yeah, we had a ZBA request, or should I variance request, that was a little out of the ordinary. This was a property in Forest Lakes area. The property was at the top of a ridge line with a slope to the lake of about 23 degrees. So it was a rather tight slope. To go from the top of the house down to the lake area was over 90 steps that they had built a stairway down to the lake area. The request was actually for a chairlift to accommodate an elderly parent that was living with the folks. Normally, we have a process and a procedure that we go through, but that was abridged by our attorney indicating that because of ADA requirements, we were basically in a situation of having to approve it, subject to a couple of regulations that we could put in. But basically, it was one of those things that, because of ADA, boom, it was in. So it was approved. And I mention this, and I take a little longer on this, because I think that this is something that we need to take a look at as a planning board for any future situations like that. And I'm sure this is kind of opened up a possible number of other requests. But anyway, it's something that on the various requests, especially with slopes going down to the lake where we are requiring only one access to it, depending on size, this is something that really is going to have to be something we're going to look at. So I'm proposing that at some future agenda meeting that we take a look at this and add that to the agenda so we can start discussing it.
Sounds good. Any questions for Paul? Okay, last up, back to Claire, planning and zoning.
Okay, just writing that down, Paul's suggestion, so I don't forget.
Add her to the list.
So just a couple quick updates. We hosted last Wednesday evening, we hosted the Corridor Improvement Authority open house. It was here at the Township Hall from 4 to 6, and then we went over to Hopscotch from 6 to 8. We had really good attendance, so good conversations, good public participation, nice coverage in the newspaper on it, so it was a good event, and I think it did a nice job raising awareness. We had sent out mailing to all property owners within the proposed district, and so we had a lot of them either attend or follow up, stop by the township with questions. So overall, really good participation. We've also been meeting with business owners, doing one-on-one meetings with business owners along the corridor, as well as with the taxing jurisdictions that would be a part of the TIF. So we've been meeting with them as well, and we've also met with TART and Beta just to kind of start to get ideas about specific infrastructure projects, because both the TART Trail as well as Beta's Bay Line is included in the district, so like some of those public infrastructure priorities, and did want to just mention that there's a public hearing for the proposed Corridor Improvement Authority next week, Monday evening, at the board meeting. And then the only other update I have is that we had the GI, the construction meeting for the Safe Routes to School project, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago now. So we met with MDOT and our engineer and the road commission, and are kind of getting everything squared up and ready to go for 2026 construction. So that will be all of the Safe Routes to School trail will go in tandem with the Hammond Road construction, as well as the new Civic Plaza is slated for construction next spring as well.
Hammond's getting worked on.
That's what I hear, yep.
It needs it.
Yeah,
But
so
that's
it's,
gonna be-
I think it's from Town Line up to like Grand Traverse Academy entrance.
It needs it.
Another summer of fun. Get ready. Any other questions for Claire? Okay, if not, we'll move on to item number 8, which is approval of meeting minutes from July 1st. Any alterations, corrections, or additions?
I'll make a motion to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from July 1st, 2025.
Thank you. We have a motion by Renee, seconded by Rhonda for approval of the meeting minutes from July 1st, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next up under item 9, the first item of new business is zoning amendment 4-25, temporary dwellings. And we'll just have a review and kind of overall, and then we'll make a determination as to what we want to do at the end of the conversation. But Claire, if you'll kick us off.
Okay, so as you'll recall, Planning Commission met in April, May, and July to review and discuss some policy options related to temporary dwelling units. So we have been making kind of incremental changes throughout the process. Based on our July discussion, the following changes have been made to the draft ordinance that's in front of you. So the first is just that the maximum duration without a permit is 10 consecutive days and not more than 45 days per calendar year. The next change is that for parcels of at least 2 acres in size, one temporary dwelling unit per acre is permitted up to a maximum of 4 temporary dwelling units. And then we also include language that states that the use of the temporary dwelling unit shall not result in exterior storage of more than 4 recreational vehicles as defined in the ordinance. And then the last item that we updated was that temporary dwelling units may be used to house farm laborers during the normal harvest season. And that was just placing that back in. It was an error that it had been removed, but it had previously been in the ordinance language.
And
And in terms of action next steps, we can discuss, we can make changes. I'm open to, any feedback from the planning commission, and you have an opportunity tonight to schedule a public hearing. So that would come back in front of this board for a public hearing at a future date.
Thank you. Any questions for Claire? Go ahead, Minnie.
B2 on page 8 of 15. My question is with regards to the reference to the storage. Does this mean that if you have a temporary dwelling or multiple temporary dwellings, they count in the 4?
That was the direction that I got from Paul and company at the last meeting. So, yes.
Okay, I'll just say that it was not crystal clear to me that that's what that meant.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's, what the best point is there, but thought that that's what it meant, but I wasn't sure. And then, with regards to number 7, do we need to put this on ag property or farm property, or, because the way that it's written right now, it kind of supersedes in all districts that if that temporary dwelling unit is for house farm laborers, it could be anywhere and it could be multiple. So I'm just wanting to make sure that we're not opening a loophole there.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, so I think that is a good point, and as the intention would be to have them housed on agricultural land.
That's what I thought, but
Yeah.
I don't see that in that language, and I think we need to close that loophole.
Yeah, so we do have some farmland that's not on land that's zoned agriculture, so I would say in conjunction with a operating farm or something.
I'm in support of that.
Okay.
Yeah, can we just add in compliance with I'm trying to think of the
The GAMPs.
GAMPs. Thank you. General Agricultural Management Practices. Yes,
On a working farm in compliance with GAMPs or something.
yes.
Okay.
I think that would cover us, because I'm thinking of our friends over on,
I just feel like you could say that, this is, this could be anywhere, the way that it's written.
a farm could be anywhere too, if they're in compliance with GAMPs. So that's why I'm thinking maybe that's the way to cover our bases.
But the way it's written, it doesn't have to be on the farm.
Right, so we'll change it on a working
Oh, I see what
farm
you're saying.
in compliance with GAMPs.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Thank you.
And I think you just hit on the 2 things that you weren't here for. Because we had a lot of discussion on the timing, the amount of days, the compliance to permit or not to permit. And to be honest with you, I don't want to call Bill out because he's here, but I do kind of want to call Bill out just for a moment, or have Claire speak to, because we had quite a bit of conversation about enforcement. Excuse me, at our last go-around. And I thought that you had a pretty creative way of kind of addressing that in-house, in use with Bill. And I didn't know if there was something else that we needed to bring up or not, but I felt pretty confident that this was kind of a nice way to set a tone. If there was a problem, within 10 days, we'll probably find out about it. And at that point, move forward, proceeding.
Yeah, I think, internally, as we discussed, and also in conjunction with legal counsel, we felt that the permitting would be, a lot of staff time to do the permitting, to communicate the permitting. I think it would result in likely a lot of residents not knowing about the permitting, take a lot of education and legwork. And I think that our feeling was that the, bad actors or the ones that are going to not comply with the ordinance likely are the ones that are not going to get a permit. And so from an enforcement standpoint, we're really going to be addressing people that are camping longer duration than what's permitted in the ordinance, the same way whether we require a permit or not. So that begins with a complaint, or Bill's out in the field, he notices, somebody that's been occupying a camper, he notices it for maybe a week, and so then he, moves forward with enforcement. So, Bill, you're welcome to add on if you have anything additional to add, but we did feel, I guess from staff perspective, that the permitting versus the non-permitting would be very similar, enforcement method either way.
Yeah, personally, I don't mind that. I like that idea. I think there's way more good actors than bad, and I trust that your comment hit it right on the head in the fact that the bad ones are going to surface with or without a permitting system. I think it's just a matter of how they treat their neighbors, and to the folks that have neighbors that have been camping for a long time, we may never hear about them, but that doesn't mean that that's a problem, I guess, in my mind. So I don't mind that balance, and I trust that's probably how it's been going since we've been having camping and not allowing it for the last 40 years, or however long we've had this zoning code, so that's just me.
So Claire, you talked about the education of a permit. So wouldn't the education be the same whether it was, every 10 days maximum, calendar year versus the requirement over that limit? Wouldn't that be the same education? So how could that change staff time? I'm trying to...
I think that there's two elements to the education. One is the requirement, 10 days, 45, and then the other piece is that a permit is required. So in this case, there's really one element of education, which is what the ordinance requirement is related to the 10 days, 45 days at a time. So, from in our observation, I think a lot of people do come up for a weekend. They come up for a shorter duration that's 10 days or less. So I think a lot of people are already in compliance, and so they would not necessarily even need to be educated unless it became an issue where they were camping longer than what we allow.
So then, another comment was made about the permitting would be more laborious on your department, right? I wonder, is there a system that could be used that wouldn't be so laborious? And I'm trying to think of how the DNR does it. You have to have a permit to camp there. Those are the rules. One day, you have to move every 14, but you have to get a permit, and you just log on to an app or something. So is there an opportunity for something like that?
Yeah, we have, I would say it's comparable or similar to our short-term rental licensing system. So we definitely have that technology, people log on, they create an account, we enforce, we monitor. But, whether it's the DNR licensing camp spaces, and those are, within their own property, so it's the monitoring is much easier. I think you're still going to see that takes staff time and resources.
And we've had a number of discussions, and this has come up before, but the reporting aspect of our system, complaint-driven, and the retaliation, and, some neighbors are fearful. I've had to talk to the police about a personal protection order because somebody thought I did something, which I didn't. So it can be really ugly. And so in being on that side of the equation and now this side of the equation, I like the idea of a task force to look at. Is there an opportunity to maybe change that? And I know we do have a county, a township down in southeast Michigan that's no longer complaint-driven. So I would like us to just at least investigate. I've asked, about that since I came on over 3 years ago, and so I know it's what everybody else does within the state, but. I think it's worth at least exploring.
Yeah, so I would say, one thing I would say, just related to the kind of the concern, because we absolutely don't want people to feel scared or intimidated or unsafe, and we do want those complaints to come in. And so we've found that we can very effectively with our website, if you go on, you can submit a complaint, and it's not tied to your name. And so that, I would say, would be the method that we're encouraging everyone to make a complaint. If you do want, we will, if you include your name, then staff will follow up. So that is one benefit, is if you include your name or your contact information, then we can follow up and give you an update. But if you do want to remain anonymous, we've found that that works very effectively, is with the online submission. In terms of the task force, I think because this body is not, doesn't oversee kind of the staffing, like the financial end of, planning and zoning department, you're focused more on the administration of the zoning ordinance, writing the ordinance. I think that would probably be something more appropriate to bring to the township board about potentially looking at that, because I think that if we did move to another type of method of enforcement, it would, have quite a few ramifications from a resource perspective.
No, absolutely, I understand that.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Oh, come on up, Bill.
I know we have some concerns about, the temporary dwelling units, right? But if you look at the data, how many, complaints we actually have for those since I've been here, it's really pretty nominal. I mean, I can probably think of about a half a dozen that have kind of been a concern in probably 2 years. And, it could be plus or minus that. But there's not a huge number. There's more junk and debris, probably concern out in the township than there is for temporary dwelling units. And I think that, the complaint driven, if someone's, concerned about someone, they can make a call. They see it there too long. Just make a call. They don't have to put it on the website. They can make a call on a notepad. I keep the data 2 ways. One, I put it in the system when it comes in through the website, and 2, I write it down. Everything I do, I write on a pad of paper, and I write complaint, and I write anonymous, and I write down what it's about. We follow through that, and of the individual calls, we don't give out a name because it says anonymous, right? I can get a person's number, which is not going to be part of a FOIA, and I can call that person back and let them know what's going on in 2 weeks if they see it, or 3 weeks. And I think there's people here that know that, we do follow up. I think sometimes we want to, jump in, some of us want to jump in and find right away. And if you actually get to a court, the judge is saying, what kind of facts do you have here that support you, taking and ticketing the person right away, right? So we want to kind of build a relationship with the individuals that are, bringing the complaints, and then build a relationship with the people that are causing the complaints, right? So we have good residents, right? All the way around, that's what we're looking to do, okay? We're trying to build relationships, right? And encourage neighbors to get along with neighbors. Not everybody that's got a camper or a tent up is a violator, okay? So the biggest thing for me is to create peace, okay, with all these people. And we can be a complaint-driven township, or we can just go into enforcement, and it's going to change the township. It'll really change it. So appreciate your consideration and looking into the temporary dwelling units and implications of, how we enforce and work with people. And, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for all your work, Bill. Other questions on this? Comments or recommendations? Because this is not a public hearing at this time. We'd have to schedule it for an additional public hearing to move this thing forward. if that's the pleasure of the board.
I think we've done a pretty good job over the past few months going in and out of this thing and trying to find that happy medium. There's one extreme to the other. So I think this is actually a pretty good take at that happy medium. And I would be interested to see what the public has to say about this.
I agree. I think we've heard people concerned about private property rights. We've heard people concerned about, what kind of disruptions can occur. I think this is an attempt to thread the needle, and I think we should schedule a public hearing.
What do you think, Minnie?
I have a question. In the definition of temporary dwelling unit, it talks about backyard tents and tree houses not being considered temporary dwelling units. But they're not specifically allowed in the zoning ordinance anywhere, so doesn't it mean that they can't be there?
Well, they're specifically listed as not being regulated under the temporary dwelling unit,
Right, but if it's
just
not in the
because we're permissive zoning.
But if it's not allowed in the zoning ordinance, then it's not allowed, so this means that we can't have tree houses and backyard tents?
No, because we have a lot of items that are not specifically listed. I can circle back with legal counsel on that.
You see where I'm going?
Yeah, they recommended this definition, and I think, if you really start, what about beekeeping? What about, there's many different ancillary activities that are accessory to a single-family use. To me, a single-family use has many other kind of ancillary uses, so like a tree house would be an example of something that we wouldn't specifically list in there, but it's, customarily associated with single-family use.
I'm concerned that it's talked about here as specifically not included, but I don't see it anywhere specifically included. That's my only concern.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely, I will circle back with legal counsel on that question.
Because I think they're fine. I just think that this precludes them being fine.
Okay.
Can we add a definition for a houseboat and a container in this as well? I mean, if you've been on any inland lakes, there are popping up new things of houseboats.
Yeah,
Don't
so.
know why on a small.
So
inland
houseboat
lake.
is not, it would not be considered a temporary dwelling unit. It's not, to me, it doesn't fit that definition, and there's nothing in our ordinance that would permit a houseboat, use of a houseboat.
Okay, what about containers? We're seeing those pop up a lot.
Containers for dwelling or containers for storage?
For dwelling.
Container for dwelling would not be something that would be permissible because it's not movable. Transportable structures designed for temporary living. So if it was,
Wheels.
if it was like a tiny home with wheels that came in for a few days and left, to me, that would be fine.
Okay.
If it was, set down on a foundation, and to me, that's not easily movable unless a crane comes in and moves it. So that would be not meet the temporary dwelling unit definition.
Well, let me ask you on that one, though. You're saying that part of the definition implied is that the temporary dwelling unit has wheels. All right, this says that it's transportable structures. Now, I can put a transportable structure on the back of a truck, drive it in, drop it off. That's transportable. So my question is that something that we need to specify, that it must be,
I mean, I guess.
wheels attached, or?
If it's designed for temporary use and a truck drops it off for a couple of days and picks it up, I'm not seeing the concern. It doesn't, to me, that's not something that we're seeing, and I'm not sure where that concern is coming from.
Well, that gets
They
back,
dropped it off and left it, and then it could be used for
That'd be a violation if
Right.
it was more than 10 days.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be handled by Bill.
Excuse me?
It would be handled if somebody complained that something had been there for X amount of days. He would have to follow up and see, is it something somebody's storing something in? Are they living in it? What the situation is, and if they're living in it, it would be a violation.
If it was being, if something was being stored in it, we would consider that to be an accessory structure, which we would permit. Would have to
Right.
meet setback requirements.
Right, no, I was just trying to, wordsmith this thing, that when you say, transportable, there are ways of transporting other than self-transporting, like motorhomes or trailers that are attached. So I was just, if you're satisfied that that covers that issue, that's good, but it just seems that there's a little wiggle room in there.
I guess I'm struggling a little bit just to see where the enforcement challenge would be, or where the negative repercussion of the way that this is drafted.
Yeah, I'm with you, I don't have an answer. I'm just saying is that it just struck me that when you were talking about things wheeled, self-propelled or trailered, and then all of a sudden we say transportable, I mean, that means that the storage shed or whatever the unit could be is just put on the back of a tractor trailer and dropped off, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think of like a truck top camper, generally that stays in a truck, but doesn't have wheels, so.
Well, I've seen things on, where they take these huge containers that they transport on ships, and people convert those into some type of a housing unit.
Right, and we would permit that if that was a home and it met the Grand Traverse County Building Code standards and it met all of our setbacks. That
Yeah,
could be permanent residence, otherwise,
Honestly,
they need to get it off the property within 10 days.
Yeah,
So
I
don't
think
think
that
it
you said
matters.
design for temporary living quarters. I think that's your key, is in there.
I don't think it matters if it gets outside of that 10-day window without a permit, though. I think that's where you're going.
It's a violation.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's going to go no matter what, wheeled or not, if they're living in it.
That's fine.
The other thing I would say to houseboats is that, our ordinance is very specific in terms of what's allowed in that 50-foot vegetative buffer. And so, from my perspective, clearly houseboats are not permitted to be occupied.
Any other comments on this one?
I'll make a motion to put the temporary dwelling units on the agenda in the next possible or practical time for public hearing.
I second that with the added to your note number 7 about the farm laborers.
And Mindy, I'll also see if I can wordsmith that last sentence in number 2, and I'll also circle back on the tree houses and tents.
And, yeah, thank you.
Okay, let me see if I got all that. I got a motion by Mindy to put up zoning amendment 4-25, temporary dwellings on for the next practical meeting, with Steve's amendment to adjust item number 7, item number 2, and I think that's it.
The backyard tents.
Oh, and the backyard tents. And a little feedback from legal counsel on the tents. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We'll have that one up at the next available meeting or whenever it comes available for the slot. Next up is zoning amendment 5-25, impervious definition. This is, again, another discussionary item and something that may be scheduled for future public hearings. So Claire, back to you.
Okay, so in July, the Planning Commission discussed an amendment to the definition of impervious area in the zoning ordinance to allow for permeable pavement systems. And that was, kind of the impetus for that was based on the Zoning Board of Appeals and kind of the large number of variance requests that had been received to the ZBA related to the impervious surface limitation. So I circled back with Wade Trim, with the township engineer. I spoke with Brian Souza. He made some recommendations on a amendment to impervious area that you'll see drafted in the ordinance. And so if this amendment was adopted, we would, in terms of administering it, the zoning administrator would require like a detailed design of the proposed permeable paver system. So again, this isn't just patio pavers, this would be like a system that's got the drainage stones layered, would need to meet our either AASHTO standards or other kind of, based on engineering design standards. And we would also, a disclaimer would also be put on land use permits to note that the system shall be maintained and cleaned annually, and that failure to comply shall be considered a violation of the permit. Related to that, and just to ensure that the township has recourse for any type of runoff issues associated with buildings that do not require a stormwater permit, and this is something that we've talked about with our township engineer in the past, is that we did want something in our ordinance to specify that any altered site shall control stormwater such that any increase in runoff volume does not have any downstream impacts to adjacent properties or, off of the property, regardless of whether a stormwater permit is required. So we added this additional language in section 5.15 under stormwater detention of the ordinance, just to specify that, regardless of whether or not a stormwater permit is required, you still need to manage your stormwater on site. And one benefit that this will have, in addition to, relating back to these permeable paver systems and give the zoning administrator a mechanism for enforcement if they are, truly clogged up and there's stormwater runoff, is that some of our commercial sites actually don't require a stormwater permit, because if you are redeveloping a site and it results in a net decrease in total impervious surface, a stormwater permit isn't required, yet we still would like to have our township engineer review the site plan, review the stormwater calculations, and at least verify that there's not going to be any net increase in stormwater. So those were the two items that we're recommending a tweak to, and the second one is kind of addressing a number of different issues that we've found over the past few years.
Sounds good. Any questions for Claire? Go ahead, Mindy, lead us off.
In the definition of impervious surfaces, the new part, I believe there needs to be an S at the end of include. And although we talked about it being annually in the cover sheet, it doesn't actually say annual in the zoning ordinance amendment. So I suggest that after regular maintenance, I put a comma and add a minimum of annually, comma. Because some of these impervious pavers need maintenance more than annually, so I think we need to at least have that annual in there. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
I don't think Claire does.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's an instance in which that would be overly prescriptive.
Well, it says
If it's tied, if it's tied to a land use permit for those systems, if we need it in the ordinance.
Oh, you were saying that language would take place within the permit itself,
Yeah.
not in the ordinance.
Yeah.
You just thinking for redundancy, just so people are aware of
Put
it?
it in the permit, and it's on all of them, might as well put it in the,
Okay. Just want to make sure we're not being overly prescriptive, because we would defer to kind of the best practices and AASHTO standards of that specific system in terms of the maintenance. So just want to be cautious about being overly prescriptive in the zoning ordinance.
Well, could you add that statement that you just provided?
About
know,
AASHTO
The
standards.
AASHTO standards for a specific system?
Yeah, and my understanding too is that there are AASHTO standards and there's other systems that are,
Standards,
yeah.
MDOT standards.
So I just want to be cautious
Oh,
about,
it's all over the board?
and I think, and what we would do is there's systems that are, you know, pretty common, and so I think we would gain a familiarity with those ones. But if new ones come in, we would use our township engineer as backup to review a system to ensure that it, you know, meets the engineering best practices.
Okay. And then.
Where did you say the S was? It's after includes? After include?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not seeing the S.
No, she's saying.
Or I'm not seeing the need for the S. Let me read it again. Engineered permeable systems with a design approved by the township that include regular maintenance.
Includes regular maintenance.
Include.
No, not systems is plural. So includes would include.
I think it's include.
You're talking about the design now. The design
Design approved
approved.
by the township that includes regular maintenance.
Okay.
Not the system.
It's the systems that require maintenance, but either way. Maybe we can figure
They're
it out.
English majors.
I think generally, we're all feeling pretty good about this one.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to send zoning amendment 5-25 to the next readily available time slot at the planning commission for a public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mindy, supported by Rhonda, for moving the zoning amendment 5-25 impervious definition forward to our next available planning commission conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. And the last one, zoning amendment 6-25, accessory dwelling units. I'll bring it back to Claire to set us up.
Okay, so this was kind of predicated on the public comment last month and direction from the Planning Commission, a desire to allow accessory dwelling units really in all residential zoning districts, so long as they meet the minimum lot size and dimension. So as you'll recall, in the Lakes area is one area that we've discussed a lot. The minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet, so just shy of an acre, and the minimum lot width is 150 feet. You need at least 100 feet of frontage and 150 foot of width. So as long as all those requirements are met, so it's a conforming lot, then we would permit an ADU on it. So this amendment would basically amend the ordinance to allow these accessory dwelling units in every zoning district, so long as they met the minimum lot dimensions. And I will say that in our current zoning ordinance, we specify that minimum lot dimensions have to be made, and part of that was we set that language up, and we're going to allow them in all districts, and then it came out, so you'll see that I don't have that amendment included in that, I don't have that language included in this amendment because it already exists.
This has come before the planning commission at least 3 times since I've been on the planning commission. And it always gets shot down.
And I thought it would again, but it seemed like when you were absent, there was pretty unanimous support for it at the time. That was my interpretation.
But I feel like when you put in the minimum areas of the it changes things a lot.
I mean, I think a lot of our discussion in the Lakes area is that the density is so high already, it like greatly exceeds, in many instances, it's like 4 or 5 times more dense than what's allowed in the underlying district. So this would get at that, while still allowing someone with a 1.5 acre parcel to have an ADU.
The one question I do have with regards to this, and what I'm reading, maybe I'm reading it wrong, is that if you put in an ADU on your property, you can't put that in short-term rental, but we've had the instance where it was actually the opposite. The people wanted to live in the ADU and short-term rental the house.
They would not be permitted to do that. So you can't have a short-term rental on your property if you're utilizing an ADU. So the purpose of an ADU is one additional long-term dwelling unit. That is a good question, though.
Because in 6, it just says that ADU shall not be used. Not the principal resident. If I read that correctly.
B6.
Could we just add something in there that says any structure on that property cannot be utilized,
Yeah,
or something along that lines?
I-
I'd be okay with that.
I'm just not reading it the way she just said it, so I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, let me just think,
Principal
so.
residence would have to be permitted as a short-term rental. Right now.
We're not, actually. Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Now
we've
we're-
got, we're just under our cap right now. I'm just trying to think, you are required to live on the property if you have an ADU.
You're required to live on the property in the primary residence
Or the ADU.
or the ADU. And then STR goes
Okay, we'll take a look at that, thank you.
So looking at public comment that came in, email, it's interesting about the master plan comment. The Lakes area and the future land use map, the category is very low-density residential, and that is defined. And that doesn't really meet the intent for an ADU. Did you guys read that and understand that, or
Yeah,
have
and
comments on that?
I really think that if you're going to meet the criteria for the area, that it changes things a little bit, because there's so many properties in the Lakes area that
That won't
are
be.
non-conforming.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
And so this one is, quite a large parcel before, and you got to remember, the Lakes area obviously has the lakes, but there's also
There's a lot of land around it.
a lot of land around it that's still in the Lakes area that is,
That is very low-density residential.
Yeah, and I guess I would just look back to the intent of the ADU ordinance. The intent is to permit accessory dwelling units in a manner that enhances single-family residential neighborhoods, provides affordable housing options, and helps residents of East Bay Charter Township meet their housing needs. And so I think kind of broadly, we want to kind of spread that throughout the township. I think a lot of our focus has been workforce housing, affordable housing within our urban growth boundary. And that's going to be the majority of our housing is going to be, in our water and sewer. But I think that there is kind of, just going back to the intent, there is that opportunity to provide more of a diversity of housing options throughout the entire township. It allows for some aging in place. It allows for people to, have a, multi-generational, 2 households living on one parcel. So I think it does get to the intent of the ADU ordinance, while still upholding kind of the fabric of the neighborhoods in the master plan.
I think that's why we kind of got into getting everybody, for the most part, in the past, on board, because it wasn't like you were gonna be going gangbusters everywhere with these. It's gotta be a sizable piece of property.
The only concern that I have is the floodgates, and opening them up. And not being able to put the cat back, the toothpaste back in the.
So the surprising thing is that we have very, very few ADUs, and I think that goes back to just the viability. They're expensive to build, I think that there is a lot of interest, and we have people, that come in that are maybe interested in building an ADU, but once they actually start looking at the financing side of building it, it's oftentimes pretty cost prohibitive, and so, I think we've approved less than a handful of ADUs in the last, 8 years.
So do we need this?
Well, I think that it provides an opportunity for, there's one person that would greatly benefit from it, and I don't see what I guess I'm struggling to see what the negative impact of it would be.
I think this is one of the primary policy recommendations from Housing North to increase the housing stock and to solve affordability issues. As Claire said, I think it allows people, the one commenter at our last meeting who, his daughter wanted to move up here, and this was one option to give her an affordable option to live. It also allows people with aging parents. I just don't see the harm. But I think it's good. We should increase housing choice.
Right.
We've already made several moves in our own zoning ordinance to allow multifamily dwellings. So this makes sense to me.
I think you're right. Affordability-wise, it's just to build it is no cheap adventure. So I don't think that a million people are going to just step forward and want to do this. I think that it does offer the opportunity, though, and I like the fact that it does give people affordable options to move to either, like you said, have a daughter or parents living there. We just need to keep doing more about our housing issue, because it is an issue.
But do you think if these are so expensive to build, that they're going to rent out as an affordable option? I don't think so. That's why you see building of apartments, you build in mass, and that brings your costs down. So individual one-off ADUs at an expensive rate aren't going to, the owner's not going to be able to give that an affordable
I don't think that's really the sole intent. There may be people that are going to do that, but I think it's more for the daughter that wants to move up, the aging parents,
And I think as you increase supply, it does reduce the price.
It does.
I think the slow incremental increase in housing supply.
Float the mortgage on that and not recoup.
Bill, what are you seeing in the field these days?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, just one thing I said. I know that some people would be concerned about the density-based, right, in these areas, and I can understand that. But there's one factor here with the health department. You have to have, groundwater protection. There's septic fields. You either have sewer and water, right, that's going to allow for more density, but you got septic and well, right? So you can't put an ADU on, according to the health department. They've got regulations, right, that they got to follow. So something to consider. If you got 11,000, 15,000 square foot lot, it's got a septic and well, you don't have a place to put another house. Unless you can tap into the septic and well, a lot of times you can't do that, right, with another bedroom, because those are all permitted. So, the soils, they got to be suitable, the distances have to be suitable, the lot size has to be suitable. So we're not looking at, I don't think, putting ADUs on a lot of little lots around the lakes area. You're talking about the bigger, lots that are feasible, that work for the home setbacks and septic and well setbacks that are required by the health department.
As much as I love the idea of having an ADU, there's no way I could put one on my property. Because of the topography of it, way the house sits, where my septic and well sit, it's not an option. So I think there's going to be a lot of that, but at least it offers an opportunity to the people that want to do it and can do it, because I don't think they should be penalized.
And I think there's deed restrictions in a lot of neighborhoods,
Oh,
too.
yeah, I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
So all those things are going to take care of it, I guess is my point. There's lots of things in place already that are going to take care of it. It's not going to, I don't think we're going to see a saturation of it by any means. But it does open up the opportunity for the people that want to do it and can.
Where did the 250 come from?
250?
The square foot?
Minimum square footage.
That was developed prior to my time with the township, so it's carried over from, I think, a 2008 amendment. But I think you're going to find that you're not going to get anything, nobody's going to want to build something smaller than that.
Right.
And we don't have a minimum dwelling size, so I think, I would say it's pretty appropriate.
What's the minimum size in a cabbie court?
We don't have a minimum.
I think it's state code. For some reason, 350's in my head.
I was thinking it was 4.
There is no specific foot, it's just bathrooms have specific requirements, bedrooms have specific requirements, so there's no cut and dry square footage from the building code.
But to keep this conversation moving, we get to have it again if we choose to participate in moving this to an amendment consideration.
I make a motion to send this zoning amendment 6-25 to the public hearing at the next.
Support.
Sounds good. We have a motion by Steve, supported by Carl, to move zoning amendment 6-25, accessory dwellings, to the next available PC meeting for a public hearing consideration. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Next up is public comment, round 2. Have up to 3 minutes.
David Endicott again, East Bay Township resident. So, couple of reactions. Without a permit, how do you know whether the 10 days has been exceeded? You don't. I've always heard that a complaint had to go through the website. If a call to bill is now accepted as an option, then that's something that is welcome and definitely communicate it out. Going back to the permit piece, as a former CTO of 2 Fortune 100 companies, the technology is there to make a permit absolutely labor-free. I just have to comment on that. And then finally, anonymity could also be ensured by permitting a lake association to file a complaint on behalf of a member. So I'm just looking for and throwing out something creative that would help make people feel safer. Because I know as a board member of the Arbutus Lake Association, there's at least one instance, if not 2 instances that I can think of people that are fearing for their safety because of a, what I would call a bad actor. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dave.
Judy Nemitz, East Bay Township resident. Yeah, I'm dumbfounded that you're going to be able to enforce this without a permitting process, and I think the technology does allow for that. That could be labor-free. I mean, you're supposed to get a permit to cut down a tree within the 50-foot thing, and how many people do that? And they're still cutting the trees. So I'm really dumbfounded by that. Also, I think there's a lack of listening to the citizenry. There's comments made that people aren't in fear of making complaints. Have you asked the citizenry is there a survey out there? I mean, we can't sit here and make judgment without having any kind of data or empirical data. And we have some empirical things that have happened to folks. And I think, the growth boundary is made and according to the master plan and our new ordinance for that intensity and density. And I think increasing it and keeping, you keep ignoring the infrastructure where we have wells, septics, poor roads, and things like that, without pushing things to the growth boundary, which was the original intent, where they have that infrastructure in place. I really think you're not following the master plan at all, and that's very disappointing in that respect. And so I'd appreciate it if you'd go back and look at that and really gather some empirical data or some data to back up things about what the citizenry is really saying in the township. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Judy.
Hi, my name is Dane Englert. I'm a general contractor, and I work in the township. I'm also have a degree in environmental science. I support the change of the definition for the impervious surface to allow for permeable pavers. I have a client that I'm working with that wants to build a garage, and he's bumping up against the impervious surface because he has a gravel driveway. And I think we could, just common sense says that a gravel's, maybe not 100% permeable. It's not permeable like being a soil out in the woods and it's compacted, but would be a little bit more permeable than asphalt driveway. But he's still restricted because of the definition. So permeable pavers would allow him to install that and maintain it to allow to build a garage. So I support the definition. Thank you. The change.
Thanks, Dane. Okay, we'll close the public comment. Round 2, our next meeting date is Tuesday, September 2nd at 6:30. Thanks again, everybody, for the conversations tonight. And with that, we're adjourned.